What is going on, you guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are starting out getting these seats cleaned up for the WRX because they're pretty gross and I'm sitting in them right now. I didn't really think of that. I already vacuumed these seats and they are just full of grease, dirt, just a whole bunch of grime. And I want to have these things looking nice and clean before we get them swapped into the car. The seats that are in the car right now are some legacy seats, I think. They are black seats, but the side bolsters are blown right out of them. So honestly, I don't even have a steam cleaner. This is my mom's steam cleaner for like cleaning up dog hair and stuff like that. And she says this thing works really good. So I got a whole bunch of hot water in here mixed with the soap that this thing comes with. So we're gonna get this thing plugged in and steam clean these seats and we'll see how they turn out. Okay, we got it plugged in. What do I do with this thing now? How does it spray? Turn on. Whoa, damn. Oh, this is pretty sick. Okay, that took absolutely forever, but these things are finally clean, I hope. I even went as far as cleaning up all the trim pieces with some trim coat. I also cleaned the seat belts and pretty much everything on these seats. So they should be nice and clean tomorrow once they dry. I even had to steam clean the headrest because there was a bunch of dog hair and stuff like that on the headrest. I should honestly just pop up a before picture on the side of the screen right here of that seat. This thing is like a quarter full of just dirt. This is disgusting. Now the next thing I want to try and steam clean is in the hatch of this car because it's pretty gross. But this one will be pretty satisfying to do. You guys can see all the black marks and all the dirt in this trunk. So I want to try and steam clean this and get all of those stains out of here. I don't know why they ever thought it was a good idea to put white or gray trim in cars. In my opinion, I think it should all be black so you don't have to do this. There is the finished product of like 2 hours of scrubbing in the trunk and there is still stains. I can't get them all the way out. I have filled 3 of these disgusting ass bottles on the steam cleaner just from steam cleaning the back seat and the whole hatch area. But man, does the inside of this car smell good now. I wish there was a feature on YouTube where you could like smell through the phone or whatever you're watching on, because this car stunk before. Like, I don't even know what to describe this smell as. It was just like musty and it was just hard to sit in. But now it just smells like cleaning supplies. So it actually smells like you know, in elementary school when the janitor would come in and like clean the desks or they would clean the floors in the school or whatever they'd be cleaning. That's what it smells like in this car right now. Kind of a weird way to look at it, but hopefully you guys can relate. But yeah, let's move on to the next thing in the interior, which is going to be swapping out the clock spring. Shit. Yeah, baby, that's what we needed. We got the clock spring pulled out of the steering column that I got out of a parts car, and we got the steering wheel pulled off, and that steering wheel is in better shape than the one that's in the car right now. So we're gonna swap steering wheels too. The thing about this clock spring though, hopefully it's good for one, and for two, someone decided to tap looks like a power wire into the harness. It is soldered, so they did a good job, but I'm still gonna cut this wire off here and just wrap some electrical tape around the original wire, just so there's no exposed wire there. So now let's get the clock spring pulled out of the inside of the car and get this one swapped in. We're obviously not going to know if it works though until we get everything else in the car and there's battery voltage so we can see if the airbag light's still on and see if the horn works. Oh wow, that ain't right. You can almost pull this whole thing out of there. Oh, that's what's inside of a spiral cable. I pretty much made the decision I'm just gonna stop the time lapse every time I find some jank ass shit on this car. I mean, the clock spring's already screwed from when I yanked on it, but It was only mounted by one screw out of all 4 holes it could have been mounted on, for one. For two, the whole clock spring harness is cut. So good thing I have the entire harness that goes all the way back into there. And for three, why did this guy put a little butt connector on a wire that goes straight from the harness into one of the pins on this main connector if that's the normal wire that usually went in there? Like, why would you cut a wire just to put butt connectors on it and reconnect it? I seriously don't understand what goes through some people's heads when they work on cars. There's also a whole bunch of screws missing underneath here. I have none of the screws for the clock spring. So again, I'm lucky I got that entire steering column because it came with all of the screws that I need. Last sketchy thing that I found. Someone cut the airbag connector off and they decided it was a good idea to try and solder an airbag harness back together. Please, please, if you guys are watching this, do not ever cut and solder airbag wires. If there is a rip or a tear in any part of the insulation on an airbag wire, replace the entire harness. Do not mess around with airbag wires, because if there is any type of fray in your heat shrink or anything, which there actually is right where my thumb is, if you guys can see that, and if that fray would have frayed into one of the power wires here and 12 volts hit this wire, you're getting a real hard punch to the face from that airbag. New clock spring is in, steering wheel is on. I'll find out if it's straight once we get the engine back in the car and I take it for a drive. If it's not, I can always pop it off and adjust. I did mark it, so we'll see how close I was eyeballing it, but we'll find out later. Now that we got that clock spring installed, I want to get the front seat swapped out. That way we finish up everything I want to do for now on the WRX on the interior. Then after we get the seats installed, I want to work on the STI, because she ain't running very good right now. So just so that I don't risk absolutely drilling the STI with the seat rails as I'm lifting the seats into the WRX, I'm gonna get the STI pulled out of the shop, and I'm gonna get my mom's Miata pulled out of that side. It is 12:25 in the morning right now, and I was up until 5 a.m. editing the video that went up on Wednesday, which is technically today for me, but for you guys, this video will be going up on Saturday. And then I woke up at 7 to go to work, so I'm running on 2 hours of sleep right now. And after I put that clock spring in, I went inside and I was gonna go to bed. But sometimes when I wanna get something done, I can't sleep. So I wanna get the STI fixed, and I wanna get the seats in the WRX so that tomorrow I can start getting the engine back together for the WRX, so that we can get this engine back in the car, get her running, and get ripping that thing. Because it's supposed to snow soon, and the Civic's still at the body shop, and I do not want to drive the STI in the snow. As much fun as it would be, she's just too nice. I can't do it to her. Sick, boys. Seats are all swapped out, and the interior finally looks like it's a WRX again. We got the nice classic 2002 to 03 WRX blue seats in there, and it's dark, but they finally match the back seats, which is sick. We have a hopefully working clock spring and heated seats again. I felt like there wasn't really much explaining to do installing seats. It's just 4 bolts, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and whatever wiring connectors are on the bottom. Now that we got the WRX interior where I want it to be for now, let's get the STI pulled back in, and let's fix this damn Subaru. Alright, let's fix this piece of shit. This is the only thing we need to fix the STI. I got an aftermarket one because the OEM ones mount really stupid and I honestly don't like them. So we're gonna see how this one performs. This is an NTK AFR sensor, and this is the sensor that mounts right in your headers. Then after we get this sensor replaced, there's one other thing I need to do on this car, and I've been putting this off for way too long to the point where it is getting pretty sketchy. This steering shaft is for a 2015 STI. and it needs to go into my 2010 STI because I swapped the 2015 STI power steering rack into this car, and the 08 to 14 STI intermediate shaft is a little bit too short to the point where these top splines are barely grabbing the steering column, which is pretty sus because if your intermediate shaft pops up, you're either dead or your car's written off. As blunt as that is, it's one of the two. So I'm probably gonna put this in this video too. The only thing with putting in a new intermediate shaft is you have about a 1 in 5 chance of lining it up properly when you put it in without doing a wheel alignment. But I'm gonna take those odds. We're gonna get it. First try, baby. But first things first, let's get this O2/AFR sensor swapped out. The only thing that I don't like about the aftermarket sensor, and this is like, oh my God, first world problems, but this engine bay has a theme and the theme is not white. Even though all the ETS logos are white, when you have a white connector going into a gray connector, it's not very pretty, to be honest with you. But this saved me like $240 getting an aftermarket one versus an OEM. Okay, I'm talking too much. Let's get the undercover pulled off this car, get this jacked up, and replace this O2 sensor, or AFR sensor, whatever you want to call it.
Who am I? I'm the greatest. Who am I? I'm getting paid, bitch. Who am I? I'm so flagrant. Who am I? She tastes flavors.
All right, it always goes one of two ways with oxygen sensors. You karate chop it and you strip it, or you karate chop it and it comes off. Oh my God, did that actually just work? Woo-hoo-hoo! Let's go, baby. Nice, that came right out, and this thing looks like it was getting roasted like when you leave a marshmallow right at the bottom of a campfire and you don't take it out when it's golden brown and it just keeps burning and burning and burning. That's what that oxygen sensor looks like. This thing has seen a lot of flames. And oil? Is that oil? It smells like fuel. Oh, yeah, it probably smells like fuel because it's been running so rich because I had it unplugged. Sick, boys, send it. This already has some anti-seize on the threads. Let's get her threaded on in there. Oh, those threads are like butter. Thank you, Tomei, for making good headers. Then you guys are gonna torque it to spec, which is right there. I think that was like 4 Ugga-Duggas. I'm just gonna tie this sensor, or on the old one, and then we'll pull the old wire up and the new wires will come up with it. I got it going behind the power steering line, over the loop, through the valley. Oh, the click was solid on that one. All right, new AFR sensor is installed. Again, that looks ugly with the white clip to gray clip, but it's such a small thing, no one's gonna notice, except for me. So here's your intermediate shaft, right behind the good old cylinder 4 cooling mod there. There's one bolt that bolts it up to the power steering rack there, and one bolt that bolts it up to the steering column up here. So if I grab my steering column and shake it, you guys can see how much the steering column's moving there, and that's just with me twisting my wrist. I can move the steering column like that. And I'm pretty sure that's why my blow-off valve noises are just shooting through into my feet when I'm driving. So I'm gonna get the new steering shaft put on here, see what happens, see if there is still that good amount of play in the steering column. Next thing I want to mention real quick before you take your intermediate shaft off, leave your key out of the ignition, turn your steering wheel until it locks, because if you don't lock it and you spin that steering column, you are going to wreck your clock spring. So just make sure you lock that steering wheel so that you guys don't end up spending more money on parts that you did not want to. Well, after further assessment here, she's dicked. I thought that steering shaft was too short. I mean, that steering shaft is screwed. Like, there's way too much play in the U-joints. So I needed a new one anyways, but I gotta show you guys this. Everyone check your steering columns. This is sketchy. I don't know how well you guys are gonna be able to see this without seeing where that plastic piece is supposed to ride. But this plastic piece right here on the steering column is pushed back. It's supposed to be completely seated in this black bushing right there. If I wiggle it, you guys can actually see that that plastic piece is moving outside of the rubber bushing. And that's because that plastic piece is not far in enough, and I think that the column can move up and down. I'm just not sure how to move it. So I need to get this column to move back in towards the firewall of the car. I'm gonna try a couple things off camera here and see what works. If I can't figure it out, I'm gonna do some Googling so I can show you guys what to do if this happens to you. All right, not even 15 minutes later, I figured out the issue, and this was my fault, and I'll show you guys why. So I don't know if you guys could tell just by looking at it on camera, but that steering column is way further down now than it used to be, and I know exactly why it was pushed up so high and why it popped that bushing out. So the first time I took my steering shaft off this car, when I did the power steering rack swap, the part of the steering shaft that goes onto the power steering rack right here was actually so seized on my old power steering rack that I had to use a pry bar against the steering linkage, and I had to bang the absolute shit out of it up to get it to pop off the power steering rack. So basically, just to give you guys a little bit of a visual representation of what I did, that's the old steering linkage right there on the column. It's obviously way too high up right now, but this is just an example. What I did when I took this off was I put the pry bar right up against here, and I pounded the absolute shit out of this pry bar with a hammer until the steering linkage popped off on the bottom side off of the power steering rack. But what happened when I was hitting the steering column right here so much, it actually pushed the steering column up. And I'll show you what I mean inside of the car. So inside of the car now, as you guys can see, that bushing is fully seated, and I'll show you why that bushing can actually move in and out. That plastic piece can move up and down the steering column on its own, no problem. You can slide it up and down by hand or tapping it with a hammer a little bit. But if you look up the steering column right there, you can see that little square piece. And that little square piece, right under it, you can see a line. And that line is actually where the steering column splits into different pieces. And this inner piece goes inside of that upper piece, and then there's another one up higher that upper piece slides into. So it's a 3-piece steering column, it looks like. And since it's a 3-piece steering column, I think what happened was when I was hitting it, I moved the entire steering column and kind of folded it into itself a little bit. So I went underneath the car and pried the steering column back down, and it pulled this bushing right into place. Now I grabbed the steering column, I cannot move it at all. So I'll show you guys how I popped that back down. All I did was I installed my old steering shaft, which you can see it's on there right now. Then I basically just took a big long pry bar, got it against the steering shaft, and I pried against the body of the car. And as soon as I pried even just a little bit, I did not have to pry hard at all. It pulled the whole steering column down. And now when I slide it on, it actually locks right into place. And you can see up there where it connects to the steering column, you can actually see the steering column. Because the way that this works is above the steering column, there is a little flat spot. And when the bolt goes through the holes for the steering linkage, it glides on the flat spot on the top of the steering column. Then there is splines at the end, so that if that bolt were to ever back out a little bit and not be clamping this super tight, the bolt would hit the splines and this would not slide off. It's kind of just a safety measure just in case someone doesn't tighten the bolt fully or doesn't torque it properly. Then you guys probably won't be able to see, but on that bottom steering shaft, it's kind of the same idea. There's a little oval piece in the middle that the bolt sits in on the power steering rack. So now that we finally got that figured out, I shouldn't have any more blow off noises coming in through my feet anymore because that bushing is sealed, and my steering should feel 15 times better. It was always sketchy as hell going down the track. The steering would kind of hop all over the place and it was really, really hard to control. So that might explain a lot of the issues I was having, actually. It's fun when you figure stuff out like this, even though that is insanely sketchy, especially doing an 11-second pass in a quarter mile in this car with a steering column that looked like that. I don't even know what to say right now. That is the highest level of sus that you can possibly get. But I'm gonna get the bolts put back in that steering shaft, and then we'll get this thing dropped back on the ground, and then it is now 3:38 in the morning. Wow, I really let time get away from me there. I'm gonna get the intake filter slapped back on the turbo, and then we're gonna take her for a little drive. All right, I didn't have any steering angle codes or anything like that come up on the gravel road. So let's see if our steering wheel's straight on the highway. I think we might have hit this bang on first try, boys. AFRs are looking good. The sensor 1 ratio on the access port, which is the sensor we just replaced, looks good. And there's no more blow-off noises at my feet. Let's go, boys. We get the nice turbo flutter now. We don't get that whoosh, and I don't feel the wind on my leg hairs. I'm sure you guys did not want that image in your head. Yeah, sick, and our steering wheel's bang on straight too. That is why you take the key out, lock your steering wheel before you take that steering shaft off so that that column will not move. And if you don't touch your tires, then the steering rack isn't gonna rotate either. So you can just pop the old one off, slide the new one on, it should be perfect, which this one is. I almost got a quarter tank of gas, so we could only do a couple pulls because I don't like to do pulls under a quarter tank of gas. So let's go find a road that's not so busy and do a couple rips in this thing. Our amp bars are perfect, 14.7 at cruise, baby. Let's go, I'm pumped. Oh my, it is so much quieter in the car now, you guys have no idea. This is what the car is supposed to be like. Second to fourth. Holy shit. This feels like a whole new car. The steering is so responsive now. All right, let's do another second to fourth gear pull. See how fast I can bang gears. See if we still got it. Holy titties, boys. Man, when you don't drive this thing for like 2 days, you forget how much ass this thing hauls. Oh, let's go, Stacy, you're back, baby. And we got no steering angle sensor codes. This is perfect. Oh, that sounds so sick. Woo! All right, let's rip this thing first to fourth. See if we can get a first gear pull in. First gear in this car is actually insane because you rip first and it feels pretty crazy. It puts you in the seat. Then you grab second and it hits even harder. As soon as you let out the clutch in second gear, it's like your breath just gets taken away, balls in your stomach, and you can't think of anything other than trying to hit the next gear. Oh man, I love this car. I don't know how I haven't blown it up yet. Hell yeah, boys. Stacy is back and better than ever. She's back to ripping like normal, and I don't have a steering column that could have possibly killed me anymore. So now that's gonna be it for this video. I'm gonna go put the engine back together in the WRX today, so that'll be next video for you guys. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Peace out. I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.